Welcome back. If you're new, you can have me scuttling around inside your skull by subscribing. Click the bell notification and you won't miss anything. Horror therapy is when you talk about a moment from your real life that scared, terrified, or disturbed you. These are the horror therapy sessions.
Hi everyone, my name is Jen Palko from Central New Jersey, and this is my horror therapy. So my childhood horror memory is being a kid and going to bed at night and having my brother quietly and slowly crawl into my room and whisper in my ear, "Jennifer, Satan's coming to get you."
This is Patty Polly, and this is my horror therapy. A couple years ago, I'm trying to remember it as best as I can, we did a paranormal investigation, a couple friends and I, out in Nelson's Landing, the ghost town in Nevada. And it was one of the most horrifying experiences of my life. I've never felt so uneasy. And just to be clear, I wasn't a first-timer. I've done a couple of paranormal investigations prior to this and it was more fun than anything. It was really a whole lot of nothing. It was just a really cool experience. However, this place was different on a much larger scale. The Nelson's Landing was home to the Anasazi Indian tribe back in the 1700s, and after that the Spaniards came and they started, there was a mine there, and it was during the gold rush. The mine itself was notorious for a lot of strange accidents and deaths. It's very rich in death. Let's just put it that way. And when we got there, and I just want to let everybody know that we have cameras. It's all been documented. I don't have the actual footage. I wish I did. But we had EVPs, and whatever was talking to us was extremely intelligent. I've never seen that happen before in my life. We were talking to it. It was very friendly at first. It was telling us to go here and go there. And mind you, we're out in the desert, in the middle of nowhere. There's like a mine. There's like a plane just chilling in the middle of the desert. It was some kind of crash that had happened. And then there's a lot of empty space, empty houses and stuff like that. Towards the end of this EVP session, it started to get really nasty. This friendly spirit that we were talking to, I think the name was Brian, started getting really nasty with us and telling us that we were like in hell or something like that. And that's when I was like done. I was like, okay, this isn't cool anymore. I started getting the chills really, really bad. I was done. I just wanted to leave. I had never been so frightened of an area, and it is a very open area too. We weren't like confined or anything like that, but I was legitimately scared, and I didn't want this thing following me home. So we did our like little cleanse and all that, and we bounced. We were out, and I don't even know if I would go back, to be honest. Like I'm kind of curious to go back, just to see what else we could pick up. But to be perfectly honest, like that was probably the most uneasy I've ever been, and I don't scare easily. I don't. I'm pretty desensitized to a lot. But that was, yeah. Don't go there if that's something that freaks you out, because you will definitely get freaked out.
This is Nick Destro here in Los Angeles, California. Back in the late 90s, I was pretty bored one day. I grew up in Alaska, a small town, not much to do. So when I was 19, my friends and I were just hanging out. We were bored, and I said, hey, you know, it'd be cool. And my friends are like, what? Well, it'd be cool. And I was like, let's get some gasoline, get my video camera, and you guys can light me on fire. It'll look awesome. Well, so we went to this kind of secluded area in the middle of nowhere. Actually, there was a road with a bridge called the Bridge to Nowhere, and we drove past the Bridge to Nowhere, and we parked. And it was funny because there was this big pile of water, and I had a shirt on I really liked. And my friends were like, oh, once you get lit, you should jump in that water. And I was like, no, I don't want to get this shirt underneath soaked. So they covered me. We had a fire extinguisher that someone brought. I also had 5 or 6 layers of cotton clothes, which wasn't the best idea. I put on about 6 shirts, 3 hoodies. 2 of the hoodies were on backwards, so I could use the hood to kind of cover my face. And then my friends proceeded to pour 3 Lipton bottles full of gasoline on me, which is kind of overkill. I remember as they're pouring it, I could feel it like soaking through to my skin, and I remember thinking like, this is gonna end badly. But there was about 20 people there watching it. I don't know how the word had got around. I only told 2 people. So I have my friend, I hear him count down, 3, 2. He doesn't say the 1, he just lights me, and I couldn't see anything because these hoodies were covering my face, but I saw this red kind of whoosh up. I heard the whoosh. So I ran forward, and there was a big snow pile that I planned on jumping into. So I hit the snow pile, felt it, I rolled around, the flames kind of disappeared from in front of me. And I was like, cool. And so I stood up, and as soon as I stood up, that whoosh happened again. And I was like, maybe this wasn't such a good idea. So I kind of ran around for a second with like a chicken with his head cut off. I forgot to put gloves on, so I went to go grab like the stuff, and it burned my hands, and I was like, crap. So I jumped in the snow again, I rolled around, and I figured maybe I could put the fire out like one side at a time. So I laid kind of flat for a second on my chest, and then I rolled over, and as soon as I rolled over, the flames just followed the gasoline back around. This whole time too, it's all on video. You can see my friends like spraying me with the fire extinguisher. That doesn't do anything. They're throwing snow on me, trying to like put the fire out. Doesn't do anything. And at this point, 10 or so seconds in, all of a sudden I can't breathe, and I'm praying. I'm like, this is it, God help me. So I start inhaling all this burning gasoline, and it burns. Burning gasoline, trying to breathe in, and it's sort of like trying to breathe in through sand, and it just wasn't happening. It was more painful than the actual burning. So I got on my knees, and I just shoved my face in the snow so I couldn't breathe whatsoever. And I grabbed on all these clothes that I had. I had about 6, 7 layers, and I start to pull them all up. And the funny thing is, it took about 14, 15 years for me to realize that I should have just grabbed everything from the bottom and just lifted it up over my head, but I wasn't thinking. So I'm pulling all this stuff, and I got all the layers up to right about to my mouth, and then I was out. I blacked out. And I came to a minute or 2 later, and I'd kind of forgotten what happened. And I was looking out at the trees and the snow, and there were cars that had their lights shining into the woods, and it looked really beautiful and serene. And I lack of oxygen to the brain, so I forgot what had happened. So I remember just being like, this is really nice, and I blacked out. And then I came to again, and it was the same scene, but now my whole back is really, 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 really cold, and my front is really, really hot. And so I looked down, and my favorite shirt, the one that I didn't want to get wet in the first place, was cut down the middle. All the skin on my chest is hanging off. All the skin on my arms and forearms is hanging off. You can see I have a little burn right there. I have this skin graft right here. That was from my leg. This guy's, of course, right there. That's a nice one. But it was funny, so I wake up and I was like, oh yeah, I lit myself on fire. So I turned around, I was like, I gotta get out of here before the cops show up. And as soon as I turned around, I see this cop car, and I was like, crap, and I blacked out again. And then I came to a third time. The head of the fire department, he was with the EMTs, he was a buddy of mine's dad, and he came over, he's like, Jason, are you all right? And I was like, oh, just another Friday night, Donnie, even though it was a Monday. And they helped me into the ambulance, and then that's when the pain hit me, and it was It was pretty horrendous. I ended up getting medevaced from my small town to Anchorage, Alaska. I had second and third degree burns over 25% of my body. It cost me like 50 grand. But I survived. But it was a pretty horrible experience. And later that summer I was working at a gas station, and this gas like sprayed back from this car all over my body, and I remember I had this like flashback. So that's my story.
I figured it'd be best to tell this story while I'm about to take a bloodbath. Anyways, when I was very young, I was in a really bad accident. And I basically accepted death, but then ended up not dying, to make a long story short. And then shortly after that accident, I started to have what I found out later on was sleep paralysis. And these were very severe episodes. The first time it ever happened, I was laying there unable to move, and I opened my eyes to darkness, but couldn't move my body, and I could feel something breathing and talking in my ear in a language I did not understand. And then it said in English, "I love you, Bambina." The voice was so deep, no human can replicate it. It was the most terrifying thing I had ever in my entire life felt. A terror that I cannot even describe. I finally burst out of that paralysis in a cold sweat and was really freaked out. Well, these went on, and it was a weird pattern. Every time I was about to wake up, I guess, and the sleep paralysis was going to happen, I would hear a gong go off in my dream. And I started to call it the demon gong, because everything in my dream would turn into a demon and hold me down, and then the sleep paralysis would happen, and they'd all be whispering in my ear, sitting on me, breathing on me, and I wouldn't be able to move. And it also, what was interesting was sometimes when I'd be falling asleep, I would feel myself kind of lucid, like I'd feel myself taking one breath like, ah, and I knew if I would be in between sleep and awakeness, and I knew if I just let go, I could leave my body. But I was afraid to. I didn't know if I could come back. But I felt like that, like I would say to myself, like, just let go, but then I wouldn't. And I'd almost feel myself like spinning around. And I would have like these lucid dreams. I think I had a couple out-of-body experiences because I would be conscious, but I would be like feeling myself rising and like just spinning out of control. Like I couldn't control it. And that's what scared me about it, is I didn't know if I'd be able to get back in. So I didn't want to fuck with it. I was like, okay, Basically, the demon gong thing would happen towards the end of my dream, and that's when every person that was in my dream would turn into some kind of entity that would hold me down and whisper in my ear and do all this stuff. One time, a friend of mine in real life gave me a cross that he would wear in his hair. He said, here, you want to make it into a necklace? So I did. Made it into a necklace. Fell asleep with that necklace on. The sleep paralysis happened as I was waking up, and I could hear something running around the bed, which was funny because the bed was up against a wall. Then it stopped, and it was over me, breathing, and it said, "I'm gonna rip that thing off your neck." In a deep, frightening voice that I cannot even replicate. It was these episodes, I cannot even describe the fear that I felt during these things, but finally one day I got mad one night. I was dreaming, and in my dream I was following a woman to a door, and she had like a big fro. She looked like her skin tone, she looked like she may have been Hispanic or something, but she had like a big fro. Following her to a door, the gong goes off, and I'm like, shit. I knew it was gonna happen. And she turns, and her face is all cracked, and she starts to scream, and I knew she was one of the demons that was going to attack me. She opened her mouth, all her teeth were broken, and she was screaming. And something clicked in me, and I just got mad. I was just so sick of this. So as she screamed, I took my eye, and I just went right up to her eye, and I held it there. I held my eye right at her eye. And she just kept screaming, and then she just stopped because there was nothing she could do, or whatever it was. And it just went away, and I woke up. And I haven't really had sleep paralysis that much since then. Every once in a blue moon I'll have it, but it's very rare. But it really was just getting so angry at it that made me just say, I'm done. I'm done with these assholes. I have a lot of other ghost stories and stuff that have happened to me, just weird things that would happen when I least expected it. Like, not afraid, just minding my own business, going about my day, and then I'll just see something. That's happened before, but these sleep paralysis episodes were the most frightening things I ever experienced in my entire life. And if any of you have gone through this, you know what I'm talking about. All right, see you later.
This is Dave Carner on Twitter at dcarner. I am ready for my horror therapy appointment. You want a true story, and I have a true story. It happened in 1976 when I was 10. It was the nation's bicentennial year, so there was a lot of hoopla and things of that nature. I lived on 27th Street, which runs along the southernmost border of a little town called Greeley, Colorado. And our house's back fence was up against another fence, chain link fence. And then right south of that was a 4-lane divided highway that separated Greeley from another little town called Evans. And if you cross those 4 lanes of traffic, light traffic, but traffic nonetheless, there was this very steep berm that led up to another level on the opposite side to a chain link fence, and on the other side of that chain link fence was a cemetery, the Evans Cemetery. My friend Jeff and I decided that we were going to record a ghost. So we put a plan together, invited him over to spend the night. He came over. I had one of those little tan cassette recorders that had the separate black microphone with the little on and off switch on it. Well, midnight or so comes around, and so we ditch the house, bring the tape recorder, we cross our fence in the back, cross the divided freeway, and up the embankment to the zinc fence that surrounded the cemetery. And we made our way west until we were at the western northern corner of the cemetery. Our plan was simple. Jump the fence, go to the closest headstone that there was, set up the microphone, and hit play record, and go home. Well, somehow I pulled the straw that said I was going to be the one to set up the cassette player. So there we are in the middle of the night at the Evans Cemetery, and we, as you can imagine for a 10-year-old, that zinc fence was kind of high. So we made our way over the zinc fence, and now we're looking at all this nervous energy. Now this cemetery dated back to at least the 1850s or so, somewhere out in there. So the gravestone closest to us is probably pretty old. Nervous as hell, ran up to the gravestone, put down the tape recorder, hit play record, turn on the microphone, and then I hear this sound. It's the chain link fence. My friend Jeff has ditched me. I am by myself in front of this woman's gravestone, seeing my friend already up and over the fence. I panic. I freak out. I run for the fence as fast as I can, kind of yelling and screaming. I hit the fence. I climb up to the top of the fence, and I put my hands on the top of the zinc fence, and I lose my footing. As you know, the top of a zinc fence is rough, and I was hanging by my palms, full weight, from my palms on this zinc fence, screaming, essentially. Finally, I got my footing and climbed up and over the fence, and screams turned to laughter, and, well, pretty much Jeff laughing at me, and we ran back home. The next day, I went back to collect the tape recorder, brought it home, changed the batteries, rewound the tape, invited Jeff over. He came over, and we played the tape. And what you heard was the click, click, and then you hear some wind, then you hear me yelling, and then hitting the fence, and then screaming, and then the laughter, and then silence. Not really silence, but you could hear the wind. And just a few seconds or so after all that noise had ended, a voice, a female voice, really high-pitched, goes, "Pretty hard to get away. Pretty hard to get away." That is my true story. Jeff and I became unfriends after that, and I don't know what happened to the tape, but I hope I never hear that voice again.
If you enjoy listening to my voice, watch another video right now. And remember to subscribe. Leave me a comment. I'd love to know your thoughts. And one of you listening right now is going to have me knock on your window in 4, 3, 2,